Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, your global feel-good radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author, and host of this wonderful show, the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Dr. Catherine Fehrmann. Dr. Catherine Fehrmann is a general practitioner, medical doctor, an energy healer, shamanic healer, poet, and she refers to herself as a mystic. You can find out more about her work at catherinefehrmannmd.com. Welcome, Dr. Fehrmann.
Thank you.
And I hope I pronounced your name right. I know you and I were chatting at the beginning. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
That's one of the ways to say it.
How do you pronounce?
That's how I say it.
Dr. Fehrmann, awesome. Now, we're going to be talking today about healing. And one of my 10 books, actually my second book, is called What is Healing? Mm-hmm. And, we're talking today about someone who integrates traditional and energy medicine. So, Dr. Fehrmann, what is your understanding of the deepest understanding of healing?
Yeah, good question. So happy to be here. Thank you. My journey into this question started at the beginning. I left conventional medicine shortly after my training was completed, already understanding that that wasn't the path I wanted to take. I was drawn to this question of healing, although I couldn't really articulate it at the time. But through my professional training and through my personal healing, which we'll talk about, and also my personal awakening in terms of my spiritual path, I came to contact healing in the deepest way. What is healing? And that led me to the question really of what is suffering? Because what I found is at the deepest level of the yearning for healing is the yearning for freedom from suffering. So there is not just, from what I understand, the fixing of the body, right? Or even the remediation of symptoms. And understanding that, I place a lot of value on relief, though, but relief in the broadest sense, which includes relief from our own mind, which often contributes to the suffering. So, I work with people sometimes who have symptoms, and it's interesting because we might even do some work and give them some relief from their symptoms, their leg pain from when they run, or their back pain. And then, for example, happened the other day, the woman followed up with me, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm the same." And I said, "Really? What? Tell me more about that." "Oh, well, actually, I can run farther. My recovery time is quicker. I guess that means I'm better." But she was so used to being uncomfortable that she was referencing in her own mind to these patterns of suffering. So coming to see that healing has to address these underlying patterns of suffering, which are energetic patterns, they're emotional patterns, they're mental patterns, they're spiritual patterns, and they're actually patterns that live in the physiology. It's like an energy frequency. A pattern is an energy frequency. It's not an idea, which is why we can't talk about feeling better and then get to feeling better. We have to engage directly with the patterns. And that is the deepest level of healing as far as I'm concerned. But those patterns on all levels.
So, Dr. Fehrmann, you bring up several really fascinating points that I agree with. And I'm going to reference two of my books. Again, my second book is called What is Healing? And it really addresses, what is it? And the philosophical aspects as well as the practical aspects. Right. And as a medical intuitive healer, when I'm working with people, I work on what I refer to as the 5 levels of healing: the physical body, which we kind of think we know what that is, the energy system, which includes your acupuncture system, the chakras, and the breath, the emotional aspect, and which is the largest part of any of us, the mind, which is your thoughts and beliefs, and finally, what's happening with you at the spiritual level. And in one of my books, The Difference Between Pain and Suffering, I address what you talked about, which is suffering. And I have to tell the story about how that book came about, because one day I'm driving down the road, and like all of us, we get some of our greatest ideas when we're just sort of daydreaming. And my guidance told me, you need to write a little blog about the difference between pain and suffering. So I just jotted out this little article. What's the difference between pain and suffering? And then what I noticed when I looked at my blog, CatherineCarrigan.com, somebody literally read that article every single day of my life. And I realized people are really seeking deeper understanding. What is the difference between pain and suffering?
Right.
And my insight, as 28 years of experience in natural healing, suffering is the emotional, mental experience. And as they say, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And it's my experience in these 28 years of experience of healing that, as you say, we have these patterns. And if you don't address the mental, emotional aspects of the suffering, then you fix your knee and break your ankle. And you fix your knee and you break your ankle, and it goes someplace else. So these emotional imprints and these vibrational patterns, what it really is, that affect us on physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual, they create this experience of suffering that we have. And we know when we're suffering and we know when we're not suffering. And the suffering really contributes and exacerbates the physical pain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Now, what is your spiritual view of healing? Because I know that this is a very important subject for you, is spiritual healing.
Right. Well, I don't make any differentiation between spiritual work and healing work, in a sense, because if we're working with suffering, we're working the deepest levels of patterns, deeper than the psyche, deeper than the physical body, the emotional body, the energy body. Deeper than the psyche is the ultimate spiritual wound, what I call, which most people have no awareness of. And that is the illusion of the separation from God. So it's this deep, unconscious, for most people, terrible agony of feeling alone in the world, feeling separate. And most people, or many people, can't even articulate this, but their body articulates it, or their mind pattern. It's all in the patterns. This keeps happening. I keep doing this. I can't get over this or that. And I understand all this myself because I work so deeply with my own mind. So my spiritual teachings, it's interesting, came out of my healing work and the one-on-one work that I do in my office, because what I found is that I can lay my hands on someone. I can offer beautiful remedies, herbs or homeopathics, nutritional supplements, although I tend to use those less and less. I can do beautiful neurological integration techniques with people. But my favorite thing to do is to guide people with their own awareness into their own patterns, okay? Align with their own light, which is their own resource. This is not a concept. This is an actuality. This is the life force and the innocent heart that we all possess. So I felt like I was doing a disservice. Well, it naturally arose that I would start guiding people anyway, but I'm not interested in even helping people and then sending them off to go, well, what just happened, or now what? So out of this one-on-one work, I naturally started to guide people into their own resource, which includes contacting their own light, bringing awareness into the body, and being able to contact the patterns directly. How do I access? How do I find a pattern in my mind, body, and heart? And what do I do with it? And then, so my whole, the whole view of the spiritual teachings arose from me naturally doing this, not only with patients, with clients, but with myself, working with deep, deep suffering on many levels in my mind, body, and heart. And then, and being very common sense. And this is what I love. It's like, well, we want to help people. How do I do this? What am I doing? And then the understanding and the ability to articulate, because people also want to know what's happening to me. What is this?
Now,
Yeah.
here at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, we interview the leading experts in natural healing from all over the world. And many of the wonderful practitioners that I have interviewed have their own views of, like, what's the core issue that we humans really struggle with. And one of the most fascinating people that I have interviewed was a psychologist in Canada. And his view, he had written a wonderful book. And in his view, one of the original wounds that many of us struggle with is the inability to accept our own incarnation in this body in this lifetime. So we haven't, it's like we were born into a body, but we're not really sure we want to be here. And then you're saying, in your view, in your work as a GP, energy healer, shamanic healer, poet, and mystic, is that your view is that our original wound is our separation from our own light. Did I get that right?
The illusion of that.
Illusion of that.
Because we actually aren't really separate. But why do we feel separate? It's a habit. It's a pattern. And at the core of suffering in Buddhism, they say the core of our suffering is conventional mind. Another phrase for that is habitual conditioning. What does that mean? It's a pattern. And patterns are habits. And until we bring them to consciousness, they remain unconscious. And everything we do, everything we say, everything we feel, every way we react comes out of those patterns. And people say sometimes, oh, the past, that's done. Well, it's alive and well in your pattern. So let's drop in and breathe and look at that and work with that. And that's why I would say people suffer so much from being in an incarnation, so to speak, in this body, in this time, in form, right? There's the formless from which we emerge, but we're here in a body. And we're here in a body to learn how to stay in contact with the formless, which is our divinity, which is all of our resource, our intelligence, our clarity, our steadiness, everything we long for. That's our light. But we're in a habit of forgetting that. We're in a habit of thinking that's something other than who I am. And so I love this healing process, because the healing process for many people, I need help with my anxiety, I need help with my back pain. Well, people tend to come to me when they've already been on a spiritual path as well, because they already see, oh, there's more to it than this. And so, how can I find relief from this suffering on the deepest level?
Beautiful explanation. Now, in my book, my 10th book, Reading the Soul, I talk about the different things that may be happening to you on the spiritual level. And in my view, it's not all one issue. In my view, it's not one, everything boils down to this one problem.
That's right.
Because you can have different struggles. Everybody's got different karmas that we're working with. We have different soul wounds that we're working with. There's different kinds of what I refer to as soul medicine.
Mhm.
But my view as a medical intuitive healer with 28 years full-time experience in natural healing is that you are a soul having a human experience. And when you sort of look at, from that bigger perspective about why am I struggling with this illness? I'll give an example. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, I had a session with a woman who has been struggling with long COVID. And that's a really interesting one because
Mhm.
COVID affects different people differently. And
Mhm.
the long COVID, what I observe is that it seems to affect your weakest organ. So this was a woman, and her jaw has literally been shrinking since she had COVID about 9 months ago. And she wanted to know what do I do about it? And she's been to every dentist and all the
Right.
people who worked on just the structural level. And I explained to
Wow.
her, you're not doing anything wrong, but there's other things that are happening. And it was all a side effect of this. But it's my view as a medical intuitive healer that when we look at that broader perspective, what's happening with my soul? Why did I manifest this experience? What's the deeper lessons? How can I heal myself at the soul level? What's going on with me on the mental level? What are the thoughts and beliefs that I'm holding that's holding this vibrational pattern in place? What are the emotions that are coming to the surface? Because emotions can shut down anything. And then how does that spiritual, mental, and emotional affect my energy system? And then what's going on the physical level? And it's my view that when we work on all 5 levels, physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual, then you supercharge your healing. And it's not just one thing. In other words, like sometimes you really do need to do yoga to get rid of your back pain. And sometimes you're doing your yoga, but you're overlooking these
Right.
other aspects.
Right.
So you're talking about a spiritual view of healing. How do we access this or actually engage here non-conceptually?
This is so important. And one thing leading to this that I want to say about healing is that people come for healing because of their pain and because of their suffering. And often what I find is that people sometimes want things to just get better so they can go back to the way things were. And what I say to them, because this is what I found in the process, you think you're in a healing process, and you are, but you're actually also in an awakening process. You're in a spiritual awakening process. And as your consciousness is awakening, and that's very interesting because part of what we're awakening from is linear mind, this notion of conventional mind, which is this cause and effect. It's a straight line, but that's not who we are. We're holograms. We're holograms, and then we come into form, and we forget that we're a hologram of light and love, and we're trying to fit into the straight line.
Let's talk more about this awakening process in just a moment while we have a word from our sponsors.
Good.
So, Dr. Fehrmann, you talk about the process of awakening. How is the process of awakening part of healing?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm going to respond to that. And then I'm going to come back to this very important question, which, of course, is how do we access it, since we're speaking about doing work that's non-conceptual. So what I find is that Well, let's go back even farther. Because of the suffering that I've worked within myself, I've gone so deeply inside of myself to see, why am I here? Why am I even here in form? And this is part of suffering for some people, a sense of, what is my purpose? I don't understand what's the meaning of life. And so what I came to see is that I'm here to awaken consciousness in form. Because if I'm a light being, I can continue to evolve in other dimensions. But the thing about coming into form, into physicality, is that it's a different playing field and we can learn so much. And so there is this hunger for all of us, even if we don't know it, to awaken consciousness. That is, become aware of ourselves as the light, become aware of ourselves as the love, and embody it, not think about it or reflect upon it, but actually do the work to alter the frequency of who we are so that we can embody this light. And what happens often, people talk about this in the Kundalini process, which is just, Kundalini is just another kind of energy. But when energy starts to awaken and consciousness starts to awaken in the body says, I need help to adjust to this. That's why the healing process is not just about fix me so I can be what I was. It's like, no, you want to be something so much bigger, so much bigger. And what I find is that the core of helping the body to integrate is to work with the autonomic nervous system. That's the core of our physical expression. It's the intelligence of the physiology. It's also the animal of the physiology. So the awakening of consciousness and the integration of the awakening of consciousness and the healing of the body, they're all the same. It's a spectrum. You can say maybe one, but it's a spectrum. It's all the same. Awakening of consciousness, integrating the awakening of consciousness in the body, and healing. It's all the same work, because as we upgrade ourselves, the nervous system especially, which controls everything, the endocrine system, digestion, breath, the inner vision. So we want to work with the autonomic nervous system, but what we find is, in spiritual terms, we would call obstacles. In spiritual terms, they're obstacles. In physical terms, it might be a symptom. In emotional, psychological terms, it might be a pattern or a habit or a relational issue, or an addiction. You know, addictions are just habits. I'm wanting to do this because I'm trying to feel better unconsciously. Why? Because there's suffering. So we want to go to the deepest level, and that is contacting the pattern. So contacting the patterns, and I'm a poet and I love this because it's right brain. I always forget which side of the brain it is. But so this is what we're talking about with healing work. And how do we access the patterns? We access the patterns basically through sensation. What? Crazy. We access the patterns somatically, that is through the body, because otherwise we're just thinking about them. So when we access the patterns through the body, different kinds of visualization. Oh, I have back pain. Let's get close to that back pain, not think about it. Let's bring awareness inside it. What does it feel like? Is there a color and a texture to it? Is there an emotional quality to it? And then I teach people to access the light also. It's easy. If you were in contact with your true essence, which is everything that you need, it's the medicine for everything that you long for. If you could contact your true essence as a drop of light in your heart, what color would it be? And many people would say, oh, I can't contact my true essence. But if I could, it's pink. Wonderful. Again, this is not a concept. We drop in so deep into the center of the heart. We find the light. We let it radiate. We're already changing patterns by looking for the light and letting it radiate, letting it percolate, we're already changing a pattern. Because patterns are, I'm suffering, let me just keep going around and around in a circle with it. How did I do? How did it start? What can I do? Maybe that aggravates, maybe that. Important things to consider, but for most of us, the mind just keeps churning it around. So let's drop into the heart and find the light. That's already changing a pattern. And then we learn very simply through intention and awareness. This is how to do basic spiritual practice. I've done many different practices in many different lineages for many years, and just deep honoring and devotion for all of them. And I'm on a direct transmission path. Spirit kept saying to me, no, you take all that and give gratitude for the teachings, and then you see how it works for you. And this is also what I give people. And this is what I love about being free from a lineage, is that you don't have to do 108 of this or this mantra, that certain things might be helpful, but let's just try it out. You can work with your own light, which everybody has, and then up and down in your central channel with the light, and just breath with the light, feeling the breath of the light in your cells. Very simple. Press your feet on the floor, let that go. This reminds the feet to have awareness. And where awareness goes, if there's intention of circulation of the light, then the light will go there. Let's bring awareness to your back. The light will go there if we've accessed the light.
So Dr. Fehrmann, I really appreciate what you were talking about the autonomic nervous system. And I'm going to take a little break and explain that for our audience, because maybe that sounds like a concept and complicated. So this is how I like to explain it to my clients. So you have two parts of your nervous system. You have the sympathetic nervous system, which is your survival part. Okay, it keeps you alive. And every neuron, my understanding in the sympathetic nervous system, is connected to 20 other neurons. You are programmed to survive, not to relax and sit on the beach, as wonderful that may be. You also have a parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of you that allows you to relax. And but then we're not so much, again, wired at a deep level to relax. You're literally wired to survive. And what Dr. Fehrmann is talking about in a nutshell is about getting out of survival mode. So I agree with Dr. Fehrmann that so many people's issues, their suffering, their pain is all happening because we tend to get stuck in survival mode. We get stuck in the sympathetic nervous system. And when you're stuck in the sympathetic nervous system, your body's constantly pouring out the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. On a mental level, you're running all kinds of thoughts and beliefs about survival mode. I have to have this or I won't survive. I've got to have this much money or I won't survive. My life has to look this way or I won't survive. You know, these people have to approve of me or I won't survive. And all of those survival programs and the things that we tell ourselves on the mental level keep us in these deep levels of stuck in the sympathetic nervous system, constantly pouring out your stress hormones, and that's breaking down everything. The cortisol breaks down your hair, your bone, your brain chemistry, your muscles, everything is important. So as we shift out of it and we start to connect to the eternal aspects of ourselves, literally our spiritual body, and we become, in my view, like spiritual warriors, where you realize, hey, you're going to survive everything that happens to you until you don't. And when you really connect with that eternal part of you and get out of survival mode, then your nervous system starts to become more balanced. and you stop that constant production of the stress hormones. So before we hear more from Dr. Fehrmann about her view on what is healing, let's take another break to listen from our sponsors. So Dr. Fehrmann, what are the tools that you like to use when you're doing healing work with your clients?
So as before, it's interesting because there's a thread that opens and I feel like it's the foundation for the next piece. So one thing I want to say is about the autonomic nervous system and balance. And the other thing that I want to say is about this feeling of separation from true essence. So the first thing, I absolutely agree with you about the autonomic nervous system. And I'm going to take it a little deeper to say this. What I have found is at the core of health of the autonomic nervous system is this balance. It's one of the last things that you said. The core of health, actually, in all arenas, is balance. And this is so interesting because there are parallels on all levels. So we don't want to be stuck in parasympathetic either, because people who are stuck in parasympathetic mode are depressed, they're lethargic, they have no motivation, and there's a whole physical cascade related to that as well. So I want to really emphasize this whole idea about balance. And the same thing is true, as you know, on the emotional level. Anxiety, sometimes excitement can feel like anxiety. But if we're in a fear habit in the nervous system, then we start to view that as bad, right? Just like if we start to view back pain as bad, I want to fix it. We start to view the sympathetic nervous system as bad. I have to get out of it. And we're actually perpetuating our suffering in the mind with that, because this is duality. We're here in form. We're stuck in this linear mental view, as I mentioned, even though we're holograms. We're trying to force ourselves into the linear view. And part of that linear view is duality. This is good and this is bad. I only want what's good. I don't want what's bad. And we start to learn, as we gain more versatility, that all of life experience flows through us. And that is the human life. And one of the elements of the human life is the ability to feel. And there are beings on other planes who long to feel. But so we learn how to be aligned and resilient with it. So when an emotion arises, for example, a sensation arises, which are just energy, we learn how to let it move through. And that's getting to the tools that I use. The last thing I want to say, though, about the ability to relax, again, it goes to the core wound of the illusion of separation. And if we feel like I'm here alone, I'm cut off from all of my inner beloveds and my source of unconditional divine love, we're in the believing of that. In spiritual terms, we talk about the veil. We come into the veils, the illusion of separation. There is no rest in that illusion. There is no relaxation in that illusion. And that's why we want to pull in the deepest levels using our awareness and our intention. And so leading to tools, there are some physical things I use with people. I work on all the levels too. I don't necessarily name it in the way that you do, but absolutely, because I'm working with the hologram. And probably like you, I can see the hologram, I can feel the hologram, I can communicate with the hologram. And so one of the biggest tools that I use is to guide people into their own engagement with their own hologram. Because as I said, that is the source of the healing. So again, people come in, and it can definitely help the healing and awakening process. I lay my hands on, I do different neurological integration techniques to help with this balance in the autonomic nervous system. I might give a little something to help with the neurotransmitters or this or that. But at the essence of it, the primary tool and the most effective tool I would say that I use is this guiding people into their own awareness. Because again, guiding into this, into the wellstream of this infinite source. When we're in a flow in our energy body, in our emotions, in our nervous system, there is no end to the resource, because it's not about a finite supply and I'm going to use it up. It's about learning how to align with the light. And when we're optimally aligned in the light, how do I do that? Light in your heart. Work with your central channel, just the light up and down, breath in the body, breath in the cells. And then the third piece that I work with is mind. I say we're working with light, color, and sound in the mind, body, and heart. Everything you need is right there. Light, color, and sound. Why? They're frequencies. And we're working with patterns. Remember, which are frequencies, light, color, and sound. And I find that these are the three main access points. The heart, that's the devotional aspect, which everyone has devotion to something. It doesn't have to be to Vajrayana, Tibetan Buddhism. It doesn't have to be to, to the Christ light. But everybody knows their own divinity. Everybody knows what's sacred to them. And I find that this is so important. This is the heart piece. And the mind piece, because that's something we work with. We have a mind that other creatures don't. And so we need to enlist the mind, but not just the mind. I mean, there's the reputation of, oh, I'm going to go and do some kind of a focused meditation, in the cave for 20 years, and then I'm going to be enlightened. I mean, that's sort of an old model. It's also somewhat of a masculine model. I would say a wounded masculine model, because of course there's divine masculine as well as divine feminine. But the wounded masculine model is everything is here. But this is why we suffer, because we think everything is here.
And by here, for our audience who's listening, you mean on the mental level.
In the mind, that's right.
Mind, absolutely.
And conventional mind it's binomial. It's only in duality. It's yes or no. It's yes or no.
Well, one of the things that I point out to my clients, and this is my view, not that I know anything or not that I'm right, but you are a soul having a human experience. Your soul controls your mind. And your mind, which is your thoughts and your beliefs and the story you keep telling yourself about yourself and your life and what you think is happening, your mind literally creates your emotions. So as you change your story, you can start changing the way you feel emotionally. And then your emotions control your energy system. And then your energy system controls the physical. So that's why it's so powerful to work on these other levels. And once you understand your soul controls your mind controls your emotions controls your energy, and your energy controls your physical, then if you're just stuck trying to heal things at that physical level, you may take the herbs and get adjusted by your wonderful chiropractor, and you see the 5 doctors or 20 doctors, and as brilliant as they are and as insightful as they are, you're not getting anywhere. You're not experiencing healing because you're ignoring these other aspects of yourself. And so let's go back to your view about prayer. And you talk about prayer for your life. What is the role of making a prayer for your life in your healing?
Well, this is very interesting. Gosh, so many things I want to refer back to and speak to as well. I would say very simply about making a prayer, because some people are not aligned with that language. And actually that language in that way comes from the Lakota and the indigenous traditions. Again, having practiced Tibetan Buddhism for many, many years. And then I did some work with the medicine way. And that just really caught my attention, that phrase. They use that phrase a lot, making a prayer for your life. And that ties right into one of the things I've already been speaking to, which is awareness and intention. Awareness and intention. And this is another one of the key pieces in terms of shifting patterns. The first piece is to become aware that we're in a pattern. Because patterns by their nature are unconscious. That means we don't know we're doing it until it becomes conscious. It's so beautiful, though. The awakening process is so amazing because we start to become aware. I'm doing this kind of automatically. I'm thinking this thing kind of automatically. What? I'm going to put the chocolate in my mouth and I don't even want the chocolate. I'm going to speak these words to this person that I don't even want to say. It's just that I'm so used to talking to that person in that way. And the same is true for physiological habits. I'm tight in my belly. I'm tight in my belly. That's just the way it is. And so one of the things I first start to say to people right away is, become aware. Oh, it dawns on you. Oh, this is suffering.
And so if you're going to explain to our audience, what does it mean to make a prayer for
Yes.
life?
Yes, exactly.
In simple terms, yes.
Yes. So the first notion is, the first inkling of awareness is, I'm in a pattern. And then what many people do from there is they start to continue on in the pattern. Oh, I'm in a pattern, but this is just the way it is, and blah, blah, blah. And then before you know it, they're down that road. And so the making a prayer simply is, help me do something different here. That is a great prayer. Help me to do, I'm suffering. That's the first step, become aware. My mind is spinning. I feel that familiar, that heavy feeling in my head. I feel slightly nauseated. Oh, I'm suffering. Oh yeah, but this is just the way it is. Blah, 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 blah. I say, no, you're aware of your suffering. Make a prayer. Relief here, please. Help me to do something different. Help me to see what I need to see. Oh yeah, but I need to figure it out first. That's not making a prayer. The prayer is not, well, I better blah, 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 and I shouldn't have eaten that blah, blah. The prayer is, show me what to do here.
So Dr. Fehrmann, in essence, as I listen to you, in your view, and healing is transformation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, because so many people just want to get back to their old ways, whatever that is.
That's right.
But you can't be the same person who's suffering, who is free of suffering. And so there's some sort of transformation that has to occur. So Dr. Fehrmann, any final thoughts for our audience?
Well, I would say that encouragement is so important. And when one can open up the body, mind, and heart to the bigger view, it's encouraging. It's encouraging because nature supports our evolution. Nature supports our evolution. So just the seeing that things are changing, My system wants to get bigger. My soul wants more say in my purpose here in form. My heart wants to be imbued with meaning, with more feeling. I want to engage more intimately with life. And this is what the body, mind, and heart call us to, including with physical symptoms that are uncomfortable.
You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been Dr. Catherine Fehrmann, a general practitioner, energy healer, shamanic healer, poet, and mystic. You can find out more about Catherine Fehrmann and her work at catherinefehrmannmd.com. And remember, at the end of the day, what is healing? Healing is transformation. And if you're suffering, there's some sort of transformation that you can make as you get closer to an understanding of your true light. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.